Salve GBA fans, it's Zilx here, and welcome to the Week 8 preview, where we are going to be looking at the schedule and what we think of all the different matchups that are coming up in this next week.
Yo, what's up, Zilix? What's going on, GBA fans? Randy HLD, and I'm back for the Week 8 preview. Playoff race is here.
First and foremost, let's take a look at the schedule for Week 8. For our first team, we have the home team, Bullet Punch Club, with a 6-1 record, playing the away team of Playmore Esports with a 5-2. These are two top teams that are both coming off a loss, looking to turn that around and bring the momentum back in their favor. For our next matchup, we have the Atlanta Victinis on the road with a 5-2 record, traveling to New York to battle the Empoleons with a 4-3. Next up, we have the home team of the San Diego Snugglers with a 2-5 record, playing the away team Borussia Donphan with a 4-3 record. Both of these teams are coming off a win, and both of these teams are going to need more of those wins if they want to secure their spot in the playoffs. For our next battle, we have the Chicago Dragapults with a 4-3 record, traveling to the home team, Calgary Flamethrowers with a 3-4 record. Both of these teams coming off a win, looking to continue that streak so they can secure their spot in the playoffs. Next up, we have the home team of the San Francisco Arcaniners with a 1-6 record, playing the away team Copenhagen Sawsbucks with a 2-5 record. Both these teams have not had a great start to the season, and a battle like this is a good chance for them to get more wins in the bank. And finally, we have the home team of the Edmonton Coilers with a 3-4 record, playing the away team, the Wolverhampton Weaviles, also with a 3-4 record. Both these teams coming off a loss with a tied record. This is a battle to watch to see who can turn it around. Alright, so taking a look at the matchup between the Bullet Punch Club and Playmore Esports. The Bullet Punch Club, true to their name, has a lot of physical attacking threats. I do think Playmore has the defensive bandwidth to keep up with those threats, but if they rely too much on defensive switch-ins, I think the Bullet Punch Club will eventually overpower that defense. That being said, Playmore is far away from having a passive team, and many of their defensive options can crack back with powerful moves or debilitating status conditions. I expect Dragonite to be a threat as always, and its coverage is really devastating to Playmore's team. Yet, without a Dragon Dance, it is easily outsped by either the Glimmora or Roaring Moon, which can force it out. I think if the Bullet Punch Club can keep up offensive momentum, it will be an uphill battle for Playmore. However, a Dragon Dance on the Roaring Moon at the right moment can easily turn the tide of the battle. Both of these coaches have done a phenomenal job this season, so the battle between these two is one that you should not miss.
Alright, big game coming up. We have the Chicago Dragapults traveling to play the Calgary Flamethrowers. Chicago coming off a very, very big win of the season, knocking out the Bullet Punch Club, giving them the first loss of the season. The Chicago Dragapults at 4-3. The Calgary Flamethrowers coming off a very convincing win against the Arcaniners, sitting at 3-4. Big game for both teams. Definitely want to stay in that playoff race. And this game features a battle of some interesting mods here. We got the Dragapult, one of the MVP candidates, going up against Baxcalibur. You also have Ursaring going up against Ursaluna, which should be an interesting matchup here. And then, of course, we have other mons like the Iron Hands going up against like Electrode, Hisui, and Electrode. And this game is definitely a battle of like the bulkier offensive teams across both sides. Definitely going to be built around, I imagine, their dragon types. I think Ursaluna will play a big role, especially for that Dragapult. It's able to tank its attacks pretty decently well. I know Dragapult does get coverage, but Ursaluna is a tank, right? So it should be able to handle that. The Hisui Electrode obviously does have a great speed tier, actually being able to outspeed the Dragapult. However, Dragapult does wall it naturally, so it might not matter too much here. I think the Quaquaval probably will play a big role with the Terra option, as well as, of course, always having the threat of setting up and getting off those Aqua Steps to get the speed boosts. I think the Sylveon will show up to deal with that Dragapult as best as he can. And I think the Iron Moth definitely has potential as well to do some damage. I think that the The Iron Hands is probably a mon that you have to bring to try and deal with that Ursaluna offensively. I would like to see maybe like a bit of a faster Iron Hands with Swords Dance to be able to take on the Sylveon, take on the Ursaluna. But if they were to speed prep accordingly, then that really wouldn't be a big deal for the Flamethrowers. But ultimately, I think this game will come down to a lot of the defensive backbones and see who can, all outwall each other. Because like I said, Dragapult has been a force all season, getting out those late game Dragon Dances or even just going for substitutes and all that. So if the Flamethrowers are able to, withstand what Q has, then I think they'll be just fine. And for Q, I think if he's able to find ways to break holes through like the likes of Sylveon, maybe prevent like screens going up from Grimmsnarl, or prevent Slowking from getting annoying. Maybe like it could perhaps potentially go for some sort of Calm Mind shenanigans. I don't know. But if he's able to withstand the power of Excalibur or Ursaluna, then he should be fine. It also really surprised me if he saw like Trick Room or something. But yeah, for me it just comes down to the backbones of who's going to withstand each other's offense.
For our next matchup, we have the New York Empoleon against the Atlanta Victinis. I think Greninja has a pretty good matchup here because when Urshifu or like an Abomasnow are your best switch-ins, it can be a dangerous game. We will probably see a Terra Fairy on that Skeledirge if it does come, since Unaware will definitely prove useful here. Atlanta may rely too heavily on that Skeledirge though, since Ceruledge Edge also poses a serious threat to basically the entire roster. The best bet the Victinis have to see a victory would be to trying to overpower the Empoleon's roster with Urshifu and probably also Dragalge. I wouldn't be too surprised to see a dual screen set on the Sandy Shocks to better handle the offensive threats and to allow for Atlanta's own threats to thrive.
Alright, next game we have the 2-5 Copenhagen Sawsbucks playing the San Francisco Arcaniners. Both coaches coming off a very different week. Copenhagen was able to pick up their second win of the season last week, and Arcaniners having a brutal loss to the Flamethrowers, and both coaches are looking to get into the W column, and both coaches desperately need to win this to stay alive in the playoff race. This game features the Iron Bundle, of course, going against the Regulaiki. The Regulaiki's speed tier is insane in this matchup. I definitely think it's going to be at the forefront of Georgia's team. We also see the new mon. We have King Gambit for the San Francisco Arcaniners. This mon potentially have a role in this game. I know Breloom is there and the Landorus is there, but Landorus obviously wouldn't like to come in front of the King Gambit and give it a Defiant boost if you were to opt to bring a Defiant set. But I do think that with that King Gambit there, Breloom will show up, which could potentially open the door for something like Hawlucha, something like the Gyarados, something like the Amoonguss. I think that having that there as opposed to what would have been the Volcarona makes things a bit more favorable, I think. I also think that Hawlucha is just so good here along with the Rillaboom that core is probably going to show up in this game if I had to imagine. But for Frosted side, I think that you definitely want to stick to what's been doing great. That Hisuian Zoroark has been playing a lot of mind games, a lot of coaches this season. So I think that's going to continue to play a role here. Maybe you can catch George. Maybe she can catch George with something, in the middle of the game, depending on what it's disguised as. The Hydreigon is probably going to have to be there solely just for the Chi-Yu defensively. It's actually one of the very few mons that kind of just deals with it naturally. Carbink does as well, but I think Hydreigon's definitely going to be at the forefront of Frosted's build. The Landorus, depending on how you want to build it, if you were able to get off some sort of like double dance set, I think that can be valuable. But ultimately, I think it's going to be, how well can the Iron Bundle be preserved to clean up late game, especially if you want to run a booster energy set to outspeed that Regulaiki. And then can your defensive backbones of like the Slowbro, even like Hydreigon to an extent, be able to overcome George's, late game offense? Because George has proven to, even if he's fallen behind, to, keep these potential win conditions in the back. So it's going to come down to coaches playing to the end here for sure. Who's able to preserve their win cons and make those ever so clutch plays to turn the tide in their favor. But ultimately a big game. Both coaches need this win. Both coaches want to keep their season salvageable. So Should be a good one. Should be a good one.
And then for the matchup between the San Diego Snugglers and the Borussia Donphan, I think as always, you see a team with a Palafin and an Annihilate, and you're immediately put on the back foot to prepare for that kind of pressure. Borussia's roster has the tools to handle it with Cresselia and Volcanion, which allow for them to take a sigh of relief and focus on the rest of the match. San Diego doesn't really stand up to Enamorus or Salamence very well, aside from like the Klefki, which can easily be shut down by that aforementioned Volcanion. Normally you'd like to see spikes get set up with Klefki or Toadscruel, however with the hazard clear from the Donphan's roster, I doubt hazards will remain on the field for very long. An Annihilate that gets set up either behind a substitute or with screens, if it gets a few bulk ups, it can truly pose a threat, and a powered up Rage Fist may be the Snugglers' saving grace.
Alright, and the last game I'm covering, we have the Wolverhampton Weaviles playing the Edmonton Coilers. Both teams at 3-4. Again, another game where both coaches definitely need to win this game to stay alive in the playoff standings. And of course, we've seen Just Weavile all season long having that threat of those Paradox bonds with the Sunny Day potential, going up against the Iron Valiant, which is definitely the forefront of the offense on the Coilers team. And I do think that the Just Weavile is very flexible in what he can bring here. I do think he could probably afford to go with like multiple specs options. Bandit Tusk again. I think he has the freedom to do that because it's able to take advantage of some of the bulkier, less offensive things like the Farigiraf, the Galarian Slowking, even like Rotom Cut to an extent, and they all have respectable offense, but it's just like they're mons that like they don't deal damage like out of the box. They usually need like a Choice Specs or a Life Orb or even set up for them to do damage. I think he could try to take advantage of that with that. The only downside is that Iron Valiant is a very, very potent cleaner with its Terra Ghost and maybe Shadow Sneak cleaning up and doing things like that. I do think it still has a threat to do that. I do think it's going to probably have to be some sort of mix set simply because of that great Tusk. So as long as he just carries Moonblast, he probably doesn't even need to go with like a Naive Nature or anything like that. He could probably still go Adamant or Jolly because Great Tusk Spidef is non-existent. So I definitely do think a mix set will show up here. It's probably safe to go boost your energy again. That way you outspeed that. That way you just outspeed everything guaranteed, especially since Just Weavile now has a Jolteon on the squad. And yeah, I think it's obviously going to come down to Valiant's ability to clean up late. I do think that Thundurus actually is pretty strong here as well, just being able to take advantage of its speed tier and its great stab typing into Just Weavile's team. I think Tyranitar could show up just for its sand to potentially disrupt some Sun. I do think that it's still pretty decent in this matchup, especially against the likes of like Frostmoth, Rotom Heat, Gengar. I do think it's probably going to be one of the focal points of the defensive backbone. And yeah, I think it's going to come down to, can Just Weavile like keep enough mons around for a potential surge of offense from the Iron Valiant Thundurus, or even some sort of like late game Trick Room with like Farigiraf and or Galarian Slowking. I also think that the Alamamula probably will show up here just because of its regenerator abilities. If you're able to withstand Just Weavile's attacks and just have that ability to keep a nice mon healthy in the back, especially a sponge like that, I definitely think it's pretty valuable. So yeah, that's a big game. 3-4 teams. I'm looking forward to this one.
And that will conclude our Week 8 preview. Make sure you do not miss out on the opportunity to watch these battles for yourself. All of the coaches are linked in the description, so you can check them out and make sure to see these battles for yourself when they're uploaded. I hope you all enjoyed, and I will see you guys next time.